Arnold, Mr. Corey, may you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, like what got you into pest control?
Sure. My father, Steve Arnold, founded Peachtree Pest Control in 1976. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the pest control industry. From a very early age, like a lot of second generation kids, I was in crawl spaces and out doing termite work, chasing pests around with the route technicians. So it was something I was exposed to at a very early age. Very blessed to have had a front row seat to entrepreneurship as a little boy. It's made all the difference in my life.
That's good. Before I continue with this interview, I want to give you a little bit of background of him. 2 years ago, before I launched my business, I was like listening to podcasts, watching videos about pest control. Like pretty much I was doing a lot of things. Like even when I was just working with my previous employer, like when I was driving appointment to appointment, I was just listening to podcasts about pest control. I was reading a book about pest control from technician to CEO. He even talks about how to grow a pest control company. So I was doing the most because, I knew some pest control knowledge, but I was stepping into like the business world where I didn't have any experience, like as a business owner. So I ran into this video, and like the video I'm about to show after this clip. You might not see I have to talk over this video because it's YouTube took down my video, so I'm just talking over it. But I'm showing this video so y'all can get an idea of who I'm interviewing. If you want to see the full video with the full audio, you can look up pest control blue collar millionaire. So yeah, that's my mentor, and I asked him a lot of questions when I first started. So yeah, when I saw that video, I did the most to like get a hold of him. I was like calling the company. It was just all these loops I had to go through, and I was like finally got a hold of him. Got on a phone call with him, and he gave me some guidance. Of course, I don't bother him too much because he has his own busy schedule too. But and then next 2 years later, like right now, current date, I told him, hey, I want to fly out there, make a video, and go a little bit more in depth for my YouTube audience. So let's continue now. And then how many trucks did you end up having for your pest control business?
Complicated question because of how many different businesses there were. The pest control business was split halfway through its existence with my cousin and myself. At one point, we had 115 employees out of 3 states and 9 offices. So at one point, it was quite a large organization. There were quite a few trucks on the road.
3 states?
Yes, sir.
So
Georgia, Florida, South Carolina.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
I thought it was just Georgia.
Nope, we had 9 regional offices.
Oh, wow. Wow. And your dad built all that, or?
No, my father founded the company.
Okay.
He started in 1976.
Okay.
I joined the organization shortly after graduating University of Georgia, which was about 2001. At that time, my first cousin, Jimmy Arnold, who had already been in the business for about 10 years or so, had started some South Georgia operations for us, Brunswick, Georgia. At that time, I think the organization was probably in the $5 million range. So we grew substantially after my father retired. He had taught my cousin and I a lot about business. He taught us the pest control industry. We had a wonderful foundation and a good name to grow from. So Jimmy, my cousin, and I poured ourselves into the business. We grew through acquisition. We bought a number of smaller competitors, really focused on our brand. And I think it led to a lot of good opportunities, both through growth acquisition and organics.
Oh, that's good. How do you train your people? Is it all in hand, or do you put them through like a video training? Like, how do you train your technicians?
Training is one of those things that, first off, you need somebody who's coachable. So believe it or not, in my opinion, training starts with hiring. You got to hire the right people. It's sometimes easiest to hire folks in the pest control industry who already have experience. The problem is you're inheriting what they think they know from a former employer. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's something you've got to train out of them. So make sure that when you're hiring, you understand what their background is, what their education level is. It's okay to do ride along for a day. Come join me in the truck. I'll pay you for your time. Let me see what you already know. So I think that's a big part of how do you train is who do you have? Are they coachable? What's that starting line look like? Once they're on your team, it's not one size fits all. Like, I don't think that you can effectively train somebody by, hey, here's a book. Hey, here's a video series. Hey, why don't you ride with me a couple of days? I think it's all of those things, and it needs to be verifiable. You need to have checklists, predetermined training programs that you put people through and that they sign off on. Hey, I received spill control training. I received proper mixing training. I received training on how to wear a respirator correctly. And sign off on those things and date those things, because if there's ever an issue and that employee says, well, I didn't know that, you can pull out those training records later. So it's important that you train them, no question, but it's also important that you have administrative records showing that you, as the company owner, did the proper training. You know, we're in an industry that is using product. We try to stay away from the term pesticide, right? We're using product around people. And whether or not that there's any danger in that isn't the point. There's a perception issue. So if it ever comes up and you ever get questioned, it's important that you make sure you've got records to show that your training programs are solid.
Okay. And then do you pay your tech salary or hourly, and why?
Pay structure is a great topic. I am a huge proponent of performance-based compensation structures. Commission is a wonderful thing. People need to have some control over their paycheck. The problem is, if you give somebody total control over their paycheck in terms of a commission and you allow them to schedule for themselves, you've given them too much, right? If you're going to give a commission pay structure, which I'm an advocate of, somebody else needs to schedule that route for them. In our industry, you need to spend an appropriate amount of time taking care of every single customer. I'm not saying people will rush through the work, but people can sometimes rush through the work, and that will be a poor reflection on your business by your customer, because your technician is trying to make the biggest paycheck possible, not trying to provide the best service possible. Conversely, if you pay somebody hourly, you could potentially run into the scenario where they're milking the clock. Doesn't matter how much production they got done that day. What matters is how many hours they can put on that time card. So you just got to be careful. You have to have checks and balances, systems and processes in place to control your production, to control the value of what you're providing to your customer. Compensation structure has something to do with that. You follow? So my opinion is commission base rather than hourly or salary. You know, I'm not in a position to guarantee somebody a certain paycheck every week, regardless of what they do. Your leadership years from now, when you've got managers in place, that'll be a different conversation. Give your field staff commission, give your managers salary.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then what software? We already touched on this, but mention it again. What software do you use for your pest control routes?
So we use ServSuite in the pest control industry.
Since we already talking about which software to use, let's talk about that this video is sponsored by CEDAR Pest Software. Let's go into detail on why this software is the right software for your company. Whether you're just starting out with one truck or already have 9 trucks, this software is the right fit for you. Life is like a plane, and if you don't have a destination, then you'll run out of fuel and crash. And in here, you'll have an idea on what route you're heading, because you can see how many customers owe you money and the average money you're bringing to the table. And don't even get me started on the route optimization feature, which allows you to automatically schedule multiple stops into an easy to drive route optimized for you. This will help you to drive the least miles and save the most time. And remember, make sure you use my link in the description to utilize this system for free. Well, up to 150 customers.
Did your technicians have? And then going back to the training topic, how long before you let them go by themselves?
It's hard to say on the how long they need training. One size doesn't fit all. You get a gentleman with 15 years of experience, and after a couple of days of training with him, it's clear that he knows exactly what he's doing. You're slowing yourself and him down by doing any additional training, right?
Okay.
But you get a young man, and he's brand new to the industry. You might be with him for weeks and weeks and weeks before he's ready. I think what it comes down to is the owner of the business, or whomever's in that leadership role, needs to stay close enough to that new team member to make a qualified judgment as to when they're ready. The sooner the better, right? It's not so it's not always going to be a give them 3 weeks and they're ready to go. Case by case is the best feedback I can give you.
Okay. And then, so how many stops a day did the technician have?
That would vary. It depended on, were they residential or commercial? Did they have termite work to do in there as well? We didn't have our pest control routes doing termite production, but we called it Universal Soldier, where a pest control technician would also do termite inspections. So we're in the Southeast. We were based in Georgia, and we have subterranean termites. So an inspection would be a crawl space, a basement, the exterior, lowest level of the home. There are parts of the country, as you know, where you've got dry wood or damp wood, and other areas of the structure would need to be inspected. We just, regionally specific as to what our inspections look like. To answer your question specifically, the tighter the route, the more stops you can do. We cared more about how much time we spent at each stop rather than how many we got in a day.
Exactly.
So usually you would see north of 12 and less than 20.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Between 12 to 20?
Usually.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It can be. It can be. If you've got a commercial technician and he's got stop after stop after stop, and they're all in the same building, let's say, you can knock out a whole bunch of those in a day's time.
Okay.
We had entire neighborhoods with pest control, so you're parking the truck and you're walking to neighbors. In that case, you can do quite a few in that day. But if you're in a more rural county and you've got a 20-minute drive between stops, man, you might get 7 or 8.
Exactly.
So it's the best answer is understand your business, understand your routes, understand your employees, and make sure you've got systems and processes in place that help make everybody efficient. Okay? That's the real key. It's all about systems and processes.
Got it. And then, all right, we're going to come up with some scenarios. Okay, scenario number 1, we have a customer that is complaining that her dogs and kids are having a reaction because of the pesticide we placed on their home, inside of the home or outside of the home. They went outside, but we told them, hey, don't go outside for 30 minutes or up to an hour, but they still went after the instructions and they're still complaining about this certain reaction. How will you handle that situation?
I think it's always important to make your customer feel heard, okay? You let them talk and pay attention. Look them in the eye, nod your head, acknowledge their concerns. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So once you've built some trust and they feel the empathy from you, now you can start providing some feedback. It's difficult to tell somebody that they're wrong. You and I realize the products we use almost never cause the types of reactions that people are claiming. It could be a wide variety of things. It's seasonal allergies. Who knows what it might be? Hearing them, if that doesn't give you the space, the trust building to calm their fears, then it's been a good experience of mine to bring in chemical manufacturers. That's what they're there for. Bring those representatives in, have them speak to the customer. That third-party voice sometimes goes a really long way.
Okay.
In most cases, that's where it ends. Tell them you'll change up products during the next application, because we all have a wide variety of products available to us in the industry. Reassure them that your services can be focused on the outside moving forward, because we also realize these bugs are coming from the outside. Unless you've got something like a German roach infestation in a kitchen, you're probably dealing with occasional invaders, things that you can best address from the outside. And for you and most pest control companies, we can be much more efficient by treating the exterior of the home. You can get more done in a day's time, as long as you can also be effective. And that has a lot to do with the type of pest you're treating, the season that we're in, and the other conditions around the home. Excessive mulch, overgrown bushes, gutters that aren't cleaned. Those conditions are the things that, and I know we're a bit off topic of your question, but I'm a big proponent of educating the customer, involving them in their solutions, helping them understand that they've got a role to play. It's not just about paying you or any pest control company and then their bug problem is gone, right? It's a team effort. They're the homeowner. They're there 100% of the time. You show up once a month. So we got to work together. Okay,
cool. And then scenario number 2, you do a German roach, let's say a German roach treatment, you're spraying the inside of the cabinets, and then it stains the inside of the cabinets. The customer wants to complain, wants to sue you. How will you handle the situation?
Gosh, I think it's similar to the first, right? There's some communication on the front end. There's some trust building, some being empathetic and hearing their concerns. But I need to acknowledge that you can't please everybody all the time. That there's the occasional customer that you might have to walk away from and say, ma'am, sir, this might not be something where I'm a good fit to assist you. If you've got a scenario where you've already done a treatment and they're upset with something, that's, again, man, I would love to be able to offer a one-size-fits-all solution, but that just doesn't exist. You just got to take them one case at a time, hear them, be empathetic, and do your best. If it gets out of hand, rarely does that happen, especially with something like a German roach infestation. But that third-party voice goes a long way, and sometimes you just got to cancel them. I mean, I hate to say that because that's not a good answer. Sometimes that's just where you are.
Oh yeah, or even give them a full refund. Would you give a customer a full refund? After
Absolutely, because it's not about the money. Like you want to protect your customer, you want to protect your brand, you want to do the right thing, and whether or not you've done anything wrong, sometimes isn't even the point. Taking care of your customer, that's got to be paramount. So absolutely, I've given customers their money back. Whether I did anything wrong or not is irrelevant.
Okay.
Try your best to make them happy.
Right. Okay. Love it. Last scenario. Customer is ignoring payments. How will you handle this?
Well, immediately stop service is one.
Okay.
It's tough, right? It happens a lot. We had a third-party collection service that we would eventually turn customers over to. We made every reasonable effort we could to get collected. We would make phone calls, we'd send a few letters. We would have a system in place, and the database would assist you with that process. But every organization, pest control and otherwise, are going to have some level of bad debt. It's important that your bad debt as a ratio to total revenue does not exceed 5%. That's a big number, right? I would rather see my organizations with a sub 2% bad debt. Some of that has to do with sales on the front end. As a one-man operator, you're making the sale. You understand in most cases who you're getting into business with. As you scale and you've got a team of salespeople, the salespeople don't always care as much as you as the owner might about, are we going to get paid on the back end? When you get to that size, the key to that is your salesman doesn't get paid until you get the job collected. That will make sure that they're a little more concerned about, hey, is this customer going to pay us in the future? So sometimes it's about prevention rather than cure. But again, there's no silver bullet to making that non-paying customer pay you.
Yeah, true. Okay, and then what are your goals in life? Like 5-year goals, 10-year goals? Is there anything specific that you're trying to target?
That is a wonderful question, Arlington. So I'm halfway through my professional career, right? Halfway through my life. I'm in my mid-40s. As a young man, I made goals every single year, and I've got all of those documents, back 15 years to current. And I would goal set in, I called it the 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finance, and future. And every one of those categories got a minimum of 3 goals in it. And it helped keep me on track, right? I'll tell you, recently I've been rethinking my process of goal setting and thinking that maybe it's better with where I am to be more focused on what are my commitments than what are my goals. What am I committed to? What am I committed to becoming? Who do I want to be rather than what do I want to attain? So the goal setting question is a bit of a unique one given where I am right now in my life. I don't want that answer to undermine the importance of goal setting, especially in the young crowd. I think it's critically important for young people to establish annualized goals by category and to review those a minimum of quarterly. It gives you a focus of effort, a focus of direction. Without that, you've got no roadmap. You're just out for a walk, right? And generally, you'll be half as effective without that goal set. To answer your question with some succinctness, being financially independent and spending quality time, not just time, but quality time with my family. In this past year, I've lost some very close family members. Both of my parents passed. And it was an eye-opening experience because you only get so much time to spend with the people in your life that matter. Right now in my life, I'm a little more focused on that than I am what's that next big business endeavor. but I've made mine, right? You know, I've built businesses, I've bought businesses, I've sold businesses, I've done the entrepreneurial thing for 2.5 decades. So I'm just a little bit of a different stage.
Yeah, true. And sorry to hear about your parents, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, look, if there was no death, there would be no urgency to life, right? So and I don't encourage people to focus on our own mortality, but I think it's an important topic because, look, if this didn't have an end to it, then it wouldn't matter what you did with your time. But the fact is, one, it's limited, and two, you don't know how much you have. So how you spend each moment, each day, each week, each month, and each year has immense importance. Because unlike money, which you can make plenty of, you can never make more time. Do not waste it.
I think we're gonna be like repeating some questions, but why did you sell your pest control business and not just stick to it and just scale it?
Again, these are great questions. I love this. I realized that I'm not just a bug man, I'm a businessman. By the time I was given an opportunity to sell the organization, Peachtree Pest Control, I had already bought and sold over 20 businesses in various trades, not just inside the pest control industry. So I had a taste of what it was like to be in the mergers and acquisitions arena, and I really enjoyed that. Post-COVID, private equity was flush with cash. Money was free. Interest rates were almost zero. And it was difficult for big investors to go out and find return in the open markets. So they would pool their cash through private equity and then consolidate industries. And the pest control industry it was a big one. So they were paying premiums. There's a lot of people out there, some of your viewers may be familiar, where companies were sold at massive premiums. I was fortunate enough to be included in that. So it was partially timing in my life. It was also a opportunity to capitalize in a major way on the value of the organization that might not come again for a long time. You know, and we've already seen the valuations come down. Organizations are not receiving the multiples of total revenue that they once were. So was I ready to sell the business? No, not necessarily. I love the pest control industry. I loved what I was doing. I loved my people, but I recognized that this was an opportunity and it was one not to be taken lightly. And that it, although would be the end of a chapter, it's also the beginning of a new one. And I can define that for myself moving forward. I'm not done being an entrepreneur. I'm not done being a business person. I just acknowledge that life comes in stages and chapters, and this was a chance to turn the page, so I took it.
Love it. Starting a new chapter. Okay.
That's right.
If you were to start over into getting into the pest control business, how will you go about it?
You know, once you get to a certain level of experience, you realize that you're never starting from the beginning, you're starting from experience, right? So it's difficult to say what I would do differently in super tangible terms. I understand the importance of certain things these days. Like now I know how to market properly. I know how to hire properly. Man, I got to tell you, that one right there is so critically important. There's so many companies that just you've got a pulse, you've got a job. And that you waste so much time, energy, and money, goodwill with your customer base by poor hiring practices. Like avoid that. Make sure that you invest the time to recruit, to train, to support, right? And hold accountable team members. That one right there is a critical thing. You'll waste less time by doing that. Establish the importance of your brand early. You and I talked a little bit about that. As a small company, where it's you, maybe a couple of employees, that brand is mostly about you as an individual. As you scale, it needs to become less about you as a person and more about your brand. So driving that through social media, through online advertising, maybe you like billboards, radio, whatever your market, your region calls for, utilizing those platforms to build brand recognition will play well. It'll help you grow quickly. It'll help you if you have endeavors to sell the organization later on. The sooner you establish brand recognition, the better off you're going to be. Maintain the uniforms and the trucks. How your people look is a cornerstone of how you'll be perceived in your market. If you got a truck going down the road with your logo on it and it's dirty and you got, chemical stains on the side of the truck, it just looks like hell, what message are you sending the general public?
Sure. He doesn't care about his business.
Bingo, my man. How you do anything is how you do everything. Instill in your people the I care attitude for the customer service and for the personal appearance, don't show up to work unshaven. If you need a haircut, get the haircut. If you look like you just rolled out of bed, you need to go home. Okay? Show up here looking good, ready to do work, in a clean uniform, in a clean truck. Those things go a long way.
Very true. Very true. It's all in the details.
All in the details.
What is the main problem holding pest control companies back from increasing revenue and profit?
The owner. I hate to say that. Most pest control companies start just like you, just like my father. It's a one-man operation. And we love our companies, right? And so we feel a great sense of responsibility and obligation to make sure it's perfect in every way, which is fine in the early days. But at some point you become the constraint. When you as the owner are responsible for each and every little thing every day, you can only handle so much. And this is called the law of the lid. Okay, there's some books out there that I'd recommend to you. John Maxwell, wonderful leadership author. He's got a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I think you and I had spoken on this at one point.
No, I don't think so.
We should. And your viewers, go check out The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Wonderful book, changed my life. One of those concepts is the law of the lid. You can only go so far as your lid, right? That's the biggest barrier to small companies' growth, is not allowing the team members to take on additional responsibilities and help you move forward together. And that's what it takes.
Okay, cool. And do you recommend starting a standard local pest control business or finding ways to franchise it?
You got to get good at what you do before you can sell a franchise model. You know, I think people hear, well, we'll just franchise, and they don't really understand what that means. If I were going to buy Aviator Pest Control as a franchise, right? What value does that have? I'm in a different state, let's say. We're here in Georgia today. You're from Texas. Why would it make sense for me to spend, pick a number, $30,000 to buy your brand? Like, what are you going to do to support me? Because I can make my own logo. I can make my own website. I can do all those things for myself. Why do I need you? That's where people get confused about the franchise model. If you want a franchise, you need to have something of value that you can offer that makes it easier for that franchisee to grow their business. If I go and buy a McDonald's franchise, I got a brand that's known worldwide. I've got a menu that's known worldwide. I've got marketing. There's all this stuff that's already in place. So franchising, although can be done, I just wonder in the pest control industry if that is the thing. There's people who do it. I'm not negative about it. I'm just saying for you and small operators, organic growth and growth through small acquisitions is and ought to be the focus, especially early on.
Okay. And then we were talking about books. It's funny. That's one of the questions. And give me top 3 books that you recommend for a business owner to read.
Gosh, for various reasons. John Maxwell, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, is fantastic. Those 21 foundational rules help you understand leadership. We're not in the bug business, Arlington. We're in the people business. And I don't just mean your customers, I mean your team members. Your effectiveness at leadership is going to be the singular most important factor to the company's growth over the long term. If you can persuade people and get them to buy into your way of thinking, to your direction and goals, then the law of multiplicity, groups of people will always be more effective than individuals, right? That's going to go well for you. So John Maxwell's books, that one, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and most of his portfolio are fantastic. I'd recommend a lot of those to your readers.
Okay.
I'd also say Traction, Gino Wickman.
Sounds familiar.
Yep.
Traction. Oh, I'm reading that right now. That's funny. I was like, wait.
It's a great book. I read it
that's
years
funny.
ago. I was on a plane ride coming back from, I forget where we were, doesn't matter, but I was enthralled by that book on the plane, and I consumed the whole thing on that one plane ride.
Oh, wow.
And by the time I got back, I immediately called my leadership team together and had purchased online, while it was still in the air, a book for all of them. And I said, look, gang, we're going to read this in the next week. And we did. And the book Traction provides the Entrepreneur Operating System, EOS, you're familiar. And it sets out a number of practical structural items, how you conduct meetings, how you interview well, the people identifier, the get it, want it, capacity for it, right? Those systems I personally found to be highly effective in organizing a company and keeping it focused. Because your leadership team, you've got rocks, you've got your to-do lists, your level 10 meeting, all the structure there. It's wonderful. A third book, let me think about that a moment. How a Man Thinketh.
How am I what?
How a Man Thinketh. It's not a long read, and I believe it's James, I forget the author's name at the moment. I could look it up and share it with you, but it's called How a Man Thinketh. And it's simply, it talks a lot about the power of your way of thinking. You know, how you perceive yourself, how you perceive the world around you. You know, when you show up to a meeting with a positive attitude, that's infectious. When you show up with a negative attitude, that's also infectious. Leadership is setting an example in a lot of ways. And knowing who you are is a cornerstone of that. In fact, I believe in that so strongly, I've got a tattoo that says it. That's Latin for know thyself. Knowing who you are is the foundation of all wisdom. Bringing the right attitude to your life, to your business, to your personal relationships is critically important for success. How a Man Thinketh.
How a Man Thinketh. I'll look into that one. Because I'm currently reading Traction. That was funny that you said that. I'm like, okay.
That'll help you a lot.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially as you get additional employees and you've got a leadership team and you start to scale, that's something that's going to really pay off for you.
Oh, okay.
And in the early days, as you're looking to potentially hire, I would suggest that people identifier, get it, want it, capacity for it. That's going to help you.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm literally reading that part last night when you said get it one. That was a coincidence. 3 more questions.
Sure.
How did you deal with like rainy days? Like if it's raining the whole week, how will you deal with your pest control shops? Or will you still, take them out there to work?
We tried to, and I think every pest control company does their best under inclement weather. Certainly there were days where we got that it's not practical to go out and do as much work. So we would accept it, right? It's not ideal, but it's also equally unideal to send a technician out there to a customer's house and do a treatment that's not going to really work because it's pouring rain,
Exactly, yeah.
and then upset the customer. That's just don't do that. Okay. Now, you'll probably have some stops on each route that you need to be inside anyway. If you see inclement weather coming, you've got, a few days notice, you can try to schedule around that in advance. That's just being aware, right? That's situational awareness about what's coming. We would do as much production as we could, and we would inevitably have to go back and redo some of it, which was fine. My customer satisfaction was more important than efficiency on the short term, of course, or the revenue flow. Because if your customers are happy, they're going to stay with you. You're going to grow. It's not about this 1 month. It's keep your eye on the long term. Keep a happy customer base. Very
true. Very true. Any advice for people like me trying to grow a business and scale it?
Be patient.
Be patient.
Yes. Everybody wants success right now. And success right now has a tendency to really mess up people's lives. It's why folks who win the lottery, their lives are jacked up just a year or two later. You didn't earn it. Success in business is something that you have to earn, right? It equips you for the next stage. You generally don't move into the next stage until you're ready. And becoming ready is something that takes time and can be very difficult. You don't get better unless you have faced some level of adversity, right? But people want to rush by that piece. So be patient. Take it a day at a time. Push, but also accept the fact that not everything happens quickly. Good. Okay. Good to know. I appreciate you for your time. So there's one more question. Yes, sir. I definitely want to put this on camera. Okay. What are your words to live by on a daily basis? I wish you had prepared me for something like that. That's words to live by. Words to live by. I think you have it right there on your forearm, or no? Know thyself. Nosuke Tipsum. Know thyself. Treat others the way you want to be treated. I think the world has gotten a little ugly. And I think kindness goes a long way. Treat your team members with respect, your customers with respect, the people around you. you know, taking that positive attitude into the world and just being that light, that salt and light. I think that's, if I could offer any words to live by, that'd be it right there.
Appreciate you. All right,
Absolutely.
Mr. Corey, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure, Arlington.
Can you tell them where did I just flew on from?
Hey, all the way from Texas.
All the way. And where are we at?
Monroe, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. So came a long way for this.
Yeah, see the things I do for you guys.